Peace. See what we have here today. Okay, as you see, again, I am here. Peace, drill. Peace, self I build. Again, those of you who come in quickly, please, take that opportunity as you see fit, to ask any questions or anything. Lining up the things that I want to share today. But remember the power of a civilization course of any kind is always based on the quality of everybody's questions. All right. Student always has, willingly, that this applies most when they're young. We assume, and that they are young, and with our best devices, we know that, and we teach though that the young are the best part, and we know. So then we can fairly assume that the young are the best tools. Not tools. That's a terrible word considering the lessons, but how should I put it? That the young are the best to actually challenge the teacher. You know what I mean? And this is something that is also, the older you are as a student, the more that you have to learn to do that. Sounds funny, but the older a person is, though, via overwhelming respect or just losing all of their daring in life, they usually don't question and challenge very well. All right. This is a quick note, though, if you're around a lot of school or anything. For reasons, if anybody really wants me to explain, no, I don't mind explaining it, though, but I'm going to be teaching exclusively online until March. They really aren't based on personal reasons, though. It's really based on what I think the school is for. And when we teach at the school, just so you know, when you teach at the school, you're teaching a voluntary course. That means that the people aren't asking for this, though. They're looking for it and they don't know what they're asking for, or they do know what they're asking for, right? So what you're basically doing is, when you get to the school, you don't know who's coming in, though. And you have set students that you would expect, but you also expect volunteers, you know? People to voluntarily walk in that you don't know who they are, you know? So, that's important, though. But because of that, I don't think that with everything going on, though, that we're actually equipped to take on the unknown student, the new student, responsibly. When you see ciphers now at the law school in Mecca, those are people that they know. And I think it's more responsible, though, if we teach somewhere else with those students, the students that we've compiled and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And if we do teach them at the school, then we have a controlled environment, though. You know, I'm not going to criticize the supposed control environments that others are having. But it's clear that they're just regulars. That's not the way I was taught at a law school. I was taught that, and I lived, I can say this because no one's taught there for a longer period of time. The school is designed to take on people that you never met before. So in taking on people that you never met before, you have to have the abilities and the sustainability to take on, the possibilities of whatever they bring in, though. I think with this whole COVID and stuff, even if we were able to, and I was confident, I don't think that any of the students that got comfortable going there, the students I already teach, and you all know who you are, and you've been contacting me regularly, I don't know if they would be comfortable with that as I would be. I'm used to it, but I don't know if they would be used to it. So it sets up an odd, you know what I mean? It sets up an odd thing, I'm looking in here. I see a lot of people. All right. I appreciate everybody. I'll get to everybody. You know what I mean? I see Jarrell's question. Jarrell got in here first. How to build in the post-COVID era. Yeah. These are things, you know what I mean? Like, for instance, right? Let me give you some experience, and this is what people don't know. When I got knowledge of self, I was soon learning how to defend myself and learning the martial art. You know what I mean? And these things went in hand in hand. You know what I mean? These things went hand in hand with the culture. If we purport peace, that means if we promote it, if we exude it, then we would also know how to uphold it. You know what I mean? And the greater that someone knows how to fight, the greater that they can actually end anything that's terrible quicker, but also prevent things. You know what I mean? At just the let's keep it real, at the possibilities of the possibilities that their known abilities would be used. You know what I mean? And unless most people weren't there since 2000. I could say that at least, and I'm lowballing it, at least 10 of those years, if we add up year to year, I taught in that school all by myself. I didn't have security. I didn't have anyone there. You know what I mean? So these are things that we learned. But defending a school and making it safe for the individual physically is one thing to prepare for. But no matter how much we prevent, the only reason that we could say that no one is going to get COVID, or that no one will get sick, or anything like that, or that no one will spread it unknowingly, is because we continue to survive. You see, and sometimes the continuance of survival, though, is an assumption of victory. That's not, and I mull this over constantly, though, because it feels very awkward not going to the school. But that's an assumption of knowledge. You know what I mean? That's an assumption of knowledge, though. This continued success of what you're endeavoring into assumes it's you assume victory. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if a person is continuously, I'm just making this up, in a negative example, so you can see it even more vividly. if a person is regularly rude and he continues to get what he wants out of that, he will consider himself successful in that behavior and even say, listen, I don't even want to be rude all the time, but I only get things when I'm rude. He may not understand that people might be appeasing him because of fear, but also because they're hoping that with their good behavior that he would change. So you see how not doing the knowledge ends up and on both sides could cause assumptions of all types. You know what I mean? But I even if I would feel comfortable, I don't think that I can assure the comforts of the student. You know what I mean? And here's the thing, right? I can nearly guarantee that a student coming into my classroom will be physically safe. The truth is, I can't really guarantee that for a student that comes in regularly into my classroom from COVID. You know what I mean? Because I would have had to say, I'm going to a law school, and then they're going to a law school. So I'm making them travel extra from their daily routine of the necessities that they have to get by, right? And then go to a law school. We're assuming that a law school is some type of like immediate refuge for the downtrodden and the poor. And sorry, but that's not really the way the school is built. You know what I mean? It has none of those facilities. You know what I mean? It never did. You know what I mean? When we talk about for the youth and for the development of the youth, though, we mean like with the insights and the guidance. But a lot of that guidance, consider a law school in Mecca like its workings are really like the concept of the Egyptian mystery school system. You know, this is the place that they would meet up, but that isn't necessarily the place that all of it would be going down. You know what I mean? Just like if you're a student in this classroom here digitally, your best work is not from, you know, the things that you do in these 3 hours that we speak here. You know what I'm saying? You may show, but these aren't really where your best work is. You know what I mean? Your best work will be seen as you go along. The things that you do, you know, offline. You know what I mean? Or outside of this classroom. You know what I mean? So I hope people understand that if you don't, and seriously, because it's an individual, because it's a group thing I'm speaking of, and those I don't know, those who would come in unknowingly, and those who would that I would know would be there that I wouldn't want them to feel uncomfortable. If you're in the if I'm teaching, if you're learning from me and you're in this New York City area, all you have to do is email me, you know what I mean, and ask for my number, and we can build, you know, more extensively, you know what I'm saying? And that includes those, you know, everybody out there. And I'm just reminding people because I tell them personally, if you're interested in training, if you're interested in, you know, building personally, meeting up like that, that's all fine with me. You know, we're thinking now because it decides to snow every other day. You know what I mean? So it makes it difficult to train outside. You know what I mean? I personally am not really one to train outside when I'm not sure about the qualities of black ice and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I keep my Wing Chun dummy outside here. So that area I always have to shovel anyway. But I've got, you know, I set up a great indoor training that's pretty brutal. Yes, Knowledge Allah, I wish I could answer these emails even faster because they are a lot of emails. And some of you like Self-I Build, you guys ask really good questions. You know what I mean? Really, really good questions. Self-I Build, you ask about the 1 to 10. Actually, last week's class was where I went through the entire 1 to 10. Okay. I don't want to be that redundant. I mean, I don't mind being redundant, but not so immediately. So I'm not going to go through the 1 to 10 degree for degree this week because I did it last week. You know what I mean? So you go into last week's session, got it, and that's in there. But if anybody that was in last week's session or heard it, was in it doesn't matter, and heard it and felt it and have some more questions on it and stuff, or if you just have a particular question about any of those degrees, you can feel free to ask now. You know what I mean? I'm just not going to go over it in the same. I'm not going to repeat the same type of lesson that I just gave. You know what I mean? Although I'll repeat parts of it, or new questions about the same degrees is no problem with me. You know what I mean? So if you have your own particular questions about the degrees, or questions about the what I had said last week, that's fine too. Yeah, but here's one thing people don't know either, though, especially when you have a school late, is that when you consistently teach a later course in the evening, I'm going to say for those particular hours, though, this will probably happen on other days like the weekends during the daytime, most, especially in the warmer months. But we definitely don't want I wouldn't want the school to be a place where people seek refuge and falsely seek information just so they could have some time out of the cold or anything like that. That sounds brutal. You know what I mean? But again, we don't have those type of facilities. You know what I mean? And so that's just the way it is, And one of the last times that I was there, that happened, So I wasn't really cool with that. You know what I mean? And you don't notice it until the person, Let me get through these it's all right. A lot of good people in here. Wise you, peace of God, supreme freedom. Malik, born reality, peace. 793rd, peace. Ron Fetty. I am doing good. I'm doing good. How's my family doing? They're doing good too. So definitely happy with that. You know what I mean? I think that this year has started much better for my children, so I'm happy about that. You know what I mean? And that's good enough. Knowledge, all adding on to wisdom. Stay focused. I appreciate your time awards. Thank you. All right. I guess, Jarrell, that's what I'm talking about. How to build in the post-COVID era. You know what I mean? And that's the whole thing, though. It's not really post-COVID, So remember, we're just assuming it's post-COVID. It feels that way because we survived. You know what I mean? But I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I still think that in general, not just the white man or anybody else, but pretty much people, especially in this Western world, especially Americans, they have horrible hygiene. You know what I mean? They have horrible hygiene, and they don't see that continuing. Like during the peak, you saw a lot of people using hand sanitizer regularly, and you don't see it so much anymore. You know what I mean? And that's the type of things like keep it real. Since hand sanitizer became a thing, I always had hand sanitizer. You know what I mean? And this was always a thing that I had with me. So certain things that people did during the peak of the COVID, I was doing as a regular thing. So, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like and these are the winter months where any kind of deterioration of the body leading to some kind of flu or sickness, though, would weaken the immune system for something else. But methods of showing improving, though, I think the best way is, what is the peak way of showing improving in general? It isn't to go somewhere and share everything that you know. That's really not the peak of. See, that was the main task when the Father gave the knowledge. But the main task is to prove that you are the true and living God. You see? So the main task isn't to go out there and tell everybody how, what, where, why, and how, but to show them that you indeed are that. You know what I mean? Not by declaration, not by declaration and then a stage performance, but by actually creating things. You know what I'm saying? Making things, fulfilling your talents. You know what I mean? Devising a lifestyle that is based on not just your survival successfully, that's real talk, right? But also, continued endeavors into the skills that could really draw out and manifest your real talents. And if you don't know them, I don't care how old you are, you should be experimenting with that. If you're older, you definitely should be using the journals that I tell you to collect about your life experiences, and you should be writing down, your life experiences, So these are the things that I mean, I don't think that showing improving during the COVID era, I don't think showing improvement was ever about going out there and telling every damn body who you are. It was about showing people by creating things. Let people see the creations, and after a while, then they see the supremacy, and that's it. You know what I mean? In this COVID era, though, I travel minimally. You know what I mean? And yet, for example, if you go on my Instagram page, though, it looks like I go everywhere. You know what I mean? There's always something I can do. There's always something I can share. There's always works to be done, works to then share. So I've rebuilt that network like that. You know what I mean? And it's just the beginning of the year, but you're already seeing some of the fruits of that COVID era in the, in the release of songs, articles, shows, things like that. You know what I mean? So, so you work it out though, and you work to be more productive. You know what I mean? Right? And everything is a transition. Everything. You know what I mean? These last 2 weeks, the biggest transition for me has been snow. You know what I mean? I have a perfect way outdoor training, regimen for the second half of my training. Now all of that had to be reworked. You know what I mean? And I reworked it to get the same intensity, right? Because right? And that was difficult. Yeah. So in this era, well, I wouldn't think of it as post anything. You know what I mean? It's in it. It's just a little varied than prior. But I wouldn't think of it any differently. You know what I mean? But Gregory Corker. All right, I got it, divine. I hope I remember that. If I call you by your username, it's only because I forgot your righteous name. But you can, I don't get offended. Just you keep reminding me and stuff. You know what I mean? And that's for you, I got divine. If I call you Gregory later, you know what I mean? It's not. I'm not being disrespectful. I just forget. It's a lot of names here. All right. All peace self I build. That's what it's fine to ask. You ask the questions, you won't get the answer unless you ask the question. Right? Okay, Wise, you said, what should one obey to be 100% strong and righteous in regards to the laws of Islam? All right. Well, first off, I wouldn't want you obeying anything. You know what I mean? Understand that like rules are to be made, but they're your rules. You know what I mean? And the rules ought to have justification, though. They're not just rules. Also, the other part of your question, though, is like, what are the laws of Islam? You know what I mean? I don't know what they are. You know, I don't wake up and go, you know, did I follow the laws of Islam? Did I break the laws of Islam? I don't know. I probably break a whole bunch of them. I don't know. You know, and I'm being sarcastic, of course. You know what I mean? What I would say is this, right? Is the best part of the real significant part of the question, though, is what the whole goal is of any laws of Islam, or to try to get advice of how to obey, is you desire to be 100% strong and righteous. You know what I mean? So now you have to go within yourself. I self, Lord and Master. You know what I mean? So Lord over all of the things in your life, right? And then you were deciding what will bring mastery to it, what will develop it, what will refine it, what will increase its abilities and really give you a great benefit, right? So then in that, then you're gonna find what are the things I ought to do? You know what I mean? Right? I just finished talking about my training, though. You know, I when I think of these things, I write them down and I ponder the effects of them, the usefulness of them, the time it takes, right? Because you know, the longer you work out, that sounds good, but you could also you lose your intensity, so it's not good. It becomes more of a marathon, and you know, you lose that intensity. So I always try to cut it a lot of stuff to do. I try to cut it down as much as possible, right? Not by taking out things, but by making things shorter but harder, you know? So how do you develop that? Well, you find out the ways and means that make you most effective in the things that you do that are righteous. You know what I mean? That bring a more righter you, right? What do you go into with real love, right? Intent to understand, love, and what hell can you devise? What real difficult quality work, right? Not just grueling, but quality, something that it'll be grueling, but not just grueling for its own sake. So what type of hell would that be to make you what? More right. Love hella right, right? We're in tomorrow already because of that, right? Tomorrow. Right? So he said the righteous laws of Islam. We could always come up with defined things, but what you really would be doing is always breaking down the things that you do. What are the things that you need to do? What are the things that make someone greater, right? Their physical regime, right? Their diet, right? What I said in the build awareness square build plus lesson that I wrote, right? How are you eating? How are you training the body? How are you reading? How are you writing? And how are you sharing? Do you realize that all of those 5 things, though, there is something that I can work on, that I personally can, in my own personal life, I can gauge it with quantities. Now, that doesn't mean that proves that I've done them well, but because I can gauge them by quantity, then I can also qualitatively measure them and come better to qualitatively measure them, right? So I definitely decide how exactly I'm going to eat before I even eat the meals. Like every single day based on my task and when I'm going to do my task, I'm thinking of the 3 meals I'm going to have and the quality of them, cutting certain parts, adding certain parts, maybe adding, you know, all of these things are being defined as before the day even begins, you know, not just eating randomly. I told you when I train, though, I really devise a program that'll be difficult, and then I take measures of it after they are done, though, to see how well they worked, how well did I peak, Is it becoming more grueling? And I would know it's grueling. Like for example, when a workout is too long, um, the body lags and stuff. For me, I'll already lose. I'll get distracted. The music will get a little boring. I'll take too many breaks. Sometimes other good things will invade. Like sometimes I'll get writing ideas, which is good, but it's not good for the training, which means that the training is going too long, right? So these are things that I gauge. What are the things that I must read? How many pages must I read? How frequently should I read? When should I read? At what times am I reading best? You know what I mean? What other things am I watching, doing that I can sacrifice to get even more reading time? For me personally in my life, though, that's free time to me means reading. And then that free time that I end up having throughout the day and the night is devised by the quality of my wakefulness, right? So then that judges, right? Because then if I can't really read, then that's not really going to be a time for it, right? Even if I have free time, it'd be something for something else, right? How you're writing. In other words, what are you writing? Do you write? Are there other ways of capturing your own voice besides just talking to yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How are you speaking to people? You know what I mean? How are you communicating now? What are the things that you actually do right? And then all of that summates to how you share. How well do you share with yourself? You know what I mean? Right? What are you sharing with others? You know what I mean? Or even the talents that you're engaging in that you have developed, do they actually share something to the world? You know what I mean? These are the ways that someone would figure out the laws of I, self, Lord, and Master. They're your laws. And they would have to go in accord with supreme math, you know what I mean? And a real, right and exact understanding of the mathematics as applied to you and having those defined principles with them, right? Want that, um, starts to answer your question. Crimson, peace, peace, 7-8. All right. Gregory, peace. Malik said it's like we get the test before the lesson. Now we have to implement the lessons now that we got the test. COVID. Right. Right. The thing is, though, is that, I thought about this a lot yesterday because yesterday, who's that mystery god, right? We think we know about stuff because we're surviving, though. It doesn't mean anything. I'm not saying that, and whenever you don't know enough about something, you can daringly go into situations fearlessly. However, that's not really the case, though, in my case, because what I decide to do fearlessly is being done for other people, not just for a statistic on my part. So that counts, you know what I mean? Oh, that's peace. Crimson, your name, peace god. Karende Ja King. All right. Hey, tell me about that name, though. It's Karende. I hope I'm saying it right. I'm trying to get the accent. Ja King. All right. How long have you had knowledge? And how'd you come up with that name, though? What does it mean? It's a powerful sounding name. Since 1990. Excellent. Excellent. Kurende is highest Swahili. Okay. Highest quality of warrior loyalty, humble, and humility and leader of his people. I was named after a chieftain when my parents were in Kenya. That is really, really peace, though. And certainly a most honorable and name to keep. You know, certain people keep the name that they've been given. You know, not every god that gets knowledge changes their given name, because, as with, you know, Kurende, point is that the name means something, and if it means something to you, once you get that knowledge itself is profound. You know what I mean? I Built said, self-awareness is the base from which I have become better able to express my conduct with greater degrees of clear-sightedness and insight. Indeed. And I'm taking that as a build on knowledge, right? Peace, Quartis. You said knowledge, all being born to wisdom. I see it as an idea, one, fully developed and augmented by further awareness, one, to find a more efficient way to apply a point of view to my reality. An idea fully developed and augmented by further awareness to find a more efficient way to apply a point of view to my reality. It's a good build, Quetzalcoatl. Very good. That can have very, very nearly, you know, not just daily, but hourly realities. That's peace, Karende. I'm sure if I, you know, I would hope that if I saw your face, I would remember it. I've taught a lot of students. A lot of people have come through my class, though, so I always pardon myself if I don't remember everybody like that. I hope that the times that you were in my class were useful, right? I didn't waste your time while your daughter was at Ailey, right? That's peace. See, Quatis, these are the things that you memorize. You know what I mean? When you build like that, not only do I ask you to personally make examples, but in this case, though, those are things that they become part of your principle storehouse. You know what I mean? Your principles are a shield because they allow you to make decisions quicker, what you will and will not do. You know what I mean? And if you know them in your mind, they become part of the nature by which how you react. You know what I mean? And that's how supreme mathematics is supposed to work at its most greatest level. You know. Give me a minute here. I didn't even know I didn't open my. I didn't update my notes, and I'm trying to update my notes as the class goes along, though, because trying to remember what I said in the entire class 2 days later is daunting. In fact, not only do I have some emails to take care of from students, maybe some of you in the class now, but I also have some articles to deal with that are good for 5% media, though. So don't think that what you gave me was no good. I just haven't had the time to look through it properly, find its pictures, and all that, and lay it out properly, this coming week I'll be able to do all that with good notes in my calendar. All right. Corende, can you build about the above question number 10? All right. For those that don't know, Corende is talking about the 1 to 36, right? Have you announced 120, Corende? So you got it in 90, so I'm assuming that you have, The way I was taught the above question, there's only one above question number 10. No? The only above question number 10, though, would refer to the 1 to 10, right? From the 1 to 36 and the 1 to 10. So I was always taught that had to do with that. Right? Does that have anything to do with the above question number 10? Right? That's the question. Yes, that makes him other than his own self. You know what I mean? And clearly we're talking about fear, but it's also the implanting of religion, since the 10th degree is, the nations, the said nations other than Islam, This is such an interesting degree because on one hand, it's about the process of taking ideas through to completion, and on the other hand, it's absorbing deeper what was originally learned. What I find most interesting is knowledge not is about the questions we ask, re-engaging with those questions, knowing what you want to know is a life hack. Oh, indeed, Quartis. And it's also why it links so heavily with word is bond. You know what I mean? Right? Right. As knowledge accumulates, knowledge, right? They become part of a wisdom, a way of life, a way of speaking, right? A collected wisdom. You know what I mean? And the more a man has collected wisdom, the more his life will take him to having to put his word bond. You know what I mean? He becomes more responsible for things, whether by approval or without his approval. You know what I mean? And even sometimes with his, against his disapproval. It's just the way it is. It's too bad. You're the true and living God. Right? Peace, Raja. Because eating bullshit. Okay, that does make him other than his own self, eating bullshit. Can you build on the understand that I'm on that as far as Cap still swimming my 9,000 miles? Okay. All right. You know, the understanding cipher, the early understanding cipher degrees are very important in the 120 because it's about the devil being made. What must one first do? The mental and physical powers of a real devil. For me, the 32nd degree is not really the hard hitter. You know what I mean? The real, if you understand the 30th degree, then you're gonna get into the 31st will make sense, obviously, and the 32nd will just be this idea. There is no 6 ounces of brain or 7.5 ounces of brain. Okay, and this is another point where the lessons are really going through something that you have to dig deeper. You know what I mean? And in many respects, it's using the mathematics as a way of showing the supremacy of things. You know what I mean? 6 ounces of brain. Well, the brain is about 48 ounces. You know what I mean? So it's about 3 pounds or so, right? Give or take, right? So both of those figures would be horrendously wrong. It's something that you know, another example of 120 having deeper concepts. You know what I mean? But a lot of it relates to the brainstem. If you want to get technical, you know, we build on it that it's the brainstem, the medulla oblongata, right? But it's not the medulla oblongata just that, because the medulla oblongata, if we weighted in both, would probably be similar as well, in both grafted or original. But it's what that does, though. So you talk about the activated pineal. It's like the science of melanin, as T. Owens Moore and Jules Pookrum spoke about. Everyone has melanin, and everyone needs to have melanin. It's crucial to all the cell functions. So then, what makes the difference? The difference then is in the abilities and express, you know, biochemically. What is pitched out there is the activation of the pineal gland versus the original man and the calcified pineal gland of the grafted. These are hard things to test, though, because once you start testing in this fashion, let's say if we were scientists, it would be looked at as kind of like a you know, a convenient eugenics. You know what I mean? And it's degrees like this, though, that when they are misunderstood or used conveniently for domination, that many people that get the knowledge of self, and they get very little else but, you know, the information of the knowledge of self, use this as proof. You know what I mean? The idea of grafting is the idea that all living beings, if they are put into a situation of mere survival, they will not survive well, and they will become ruthless in order to continue to survive. So the less that they have, the less that they were able to acquire, does not change the fact that they realize that they must acquire these things for survival, and thus begins the ruthlessness of daily living. The thing about the devil is that their main way of surviving, though, has been from the greatest resource that they can find, and that is those who are thriving, and that is logically us, right? But to equalize that field, we are now the ones that are also surviving, right? At the lowest common denominator. So everything is supposedly equalized, right? When it talks about the devil being weak boned and weak blooded, this is what it means, though. The grafting process put them in a position of being weaker, and so that they were prone to wickedness. Right? Wickedness, you have to actually do something. You know what I mean? And in many respects, in the making of the devil, though, self I build, those concepts of the weak bone were actually, you know, meant literally. You know what I mean? You know, we could always say, like, when people get look at us today and how we were able to survive slavery and all types of things, right? And that includes original people everywhere, right? And we could even talk about even the forms of, you know, neo-colonialism, and I don't want to say neo-slavery though, but like, today's versions of slavery, you know what I mean? Could Europeans on the Caucasians on a mass level, like mass populations of them, do the type of things that Southeast Asians have to do daily in sweatshops and things like that? Probably not. You know what I mean? They probably could not physically be able to mine all of the resources that are continually bloodsucked out of Africa. You know what I mean? And if we talk about the demand of proofs, we talk about things like the consistency of proofs, even at the higher levels of human physical development. As for, like, for example, and I know it here, martial arts, we can see the highest levels attained by original people. The way the Chinese, they reach massive physical feats in the martial arts that, the Caucasian, even as he's learning it now, is achieving on very limited levels. Meaning, and as far as limited, I mean limited amount of individuals. You know what I mean? Right? And when he does achieve it, for say like the physical martial arts at high levels, it's usually at the in a totally different philosophy. You know what I mean? So you see, like, you'll see martial artists in the Western world, like they're giant bodied and stuff like that, and so they have to eat like 1,000 times a day, though. They exhaust the body, which is completely against the philosophies. You know what I mean? Chinese, for example, Chinese kung fu philosophy, there's a lot of reservation. There's a lot of you don't tax the body. You know what I mean? Rest and recuperation, sustainment, attaining a peaceful longevity. These are things that are constantly spoken of. You know what I mean? From the physical, as far as doing physical martial arts, to even the aspects of sex, where you're told to conserve your chi, right? Right? By not ejaculating, by not always ejaculating, by holding it, recuperating, learning how to hold everything. You know what I mean? And not exhausting your chi. And there are very many levels of chi. The chi that you're born with, the chi that you exude, the chi that is ever, developed in your body, right? Like the chi in your loins that is for sex, right? So all of these things go when high physical feats are achieved martially in the martial arts world, in the Western side. It's done by, extreme overexertion. You know what I mean? It's one of the reasons why a lot of the Chinese, though, weren't always so keen on Bruce Lee. It wasn't because of his lack of honor or any of that. It's just because a lot of his adaptations of the Western world, a lot of people don't really comment on it at all. I don't know why. I've never heard anybody comment on it. I feel like I'm the only one that heard this from. Is me. The way Bruce Lee trained is a type of overexertion that the Chinese martial arts would never do. You know what I mean? We ever read about Bruce Lee and his training sessions? These long sessions that go, early 2-3 hour sessions, then another hour session later, constantly, like in the house with the children, lifting small dumbbells and, maybe, doing moves on the side and push-ups here and there. That actually is not the ethos. It definitely went against that when he was doing what he did. I went on a long tangent here, you know what I mean? But just to try to show you the impact of this concept, because it's important to know that there's no such thing as, you cannot graft anything though and make it devil. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't come out doing devilishment. You can only graft and make it as weak as possible and yet still living. It's an intriguing thing. You know what I mean? Remember, from what I was taught, even in the beginning, when the devil was made, the devil exposed himself. And that's what's in the culture degree in the 1 to 14. And he had to be exiled, right? Why did he have to be exiled? Because he exposed himself quickly. He had no reservation. And so he still had to Still had to kind of almost graft back mentally and somewhat physically back to the original, just so he could have the stamina and the reserve, right? And even to develop that reserve so he could have the cunning to take over the entire world, as he would soon do, right? Just running in there and being accepted, then lying, stealing, telling lies, stealing, devilishment, that gets you exiled quickly. So they had to be a way to embed themselves, and that's what the whole 1/4 degree and the 1 to 14 is about. You know what I mean? And if you look at it in that way, then that means that even once the devil was made, it still was a so weakened reality that their ruthlessness was off the bat. So they even needed more help to be functional. You know what I mean? And with that exile, that time to survive, and gave them the time to not only adapt. People talk about, oh, they got exiled, but then they mate. They still had to survive there for 2,000 years, right? Excuse me. You get exiled into the Caucasus Mountains, right? And when they come back, though, after all that time, though, there's a development there that it can't just come in and teach them. They had to actually develop on their own a survival method. You know what I mean? Let me read some of these comments, though, because I went on this long tangent, though. Quatis, that's P. Sunez, because we looking at the class from the Knowledge Culture Day last month, and I was able to better observe what you were saying, Sunez, about how one's ideas would be reflected in their culture, and that is not about what one hopes to get in the future, but of what one is to become in the future. Indeed, indeed. How what we are now informs how we will end up. It was a pretty dope bill that stuck with me initially. Oh, I'm glad. Self-build, still swimming, definitely a positive is real, and power can't stop once. Oh, indeed, indeed. All right, supreme freedom. All right. Dark Kim said, I build weak bone, weak blood current throughout the environment. Your genes still have to be nurtured in the environment. Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because certainly with the grafting, that there would be some weak bone and weak blooded. Remember, there's experiments, the dilution of the blood, that's mentioned in the degrees, you know what I mean? But the nurturing doesn't help either. You know what I'm saying? Right. Bruce Lee told Wonder Woman not so much. You guys hated on the Wonder Woman, though. I thought it was okay. You know what I mean? I went into the movie not expecting much, and I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And grafted gal. Yeah. That's funny. I think I might be the only person that wasn't mad about the Wonder Woman movie. Oh yeah, that's not my cup though. Yeah, but that's my sister's cup. But I still enjoyed the movie though. have low standards, they'll always be achieved. So I did not have high standards, expectations, I should say, when I saw the movie. So how could it disappoint, right? Ah, it's a pretty, yeah. uh, oh yeah, I can't stand girl power. I could say that on your channel because it's not Hotep. Yeah, yeah. There's not Hotep though. They exile you. Yeah, you know. Yeah, it's a woman half naked fighting people though. It's somewhat enjoyable. You know, not gonna get too mad, right? But but an interesting movie as well because it starts out very campy, but if you look at it from an 80s perspective, I think it's trying to satire the 80s. So if you actually take the movie for what it's worth, it's pretty clever how it blatantly satires the 80s and then has to get to some type of seriousness. You know what I mean? And by the way, the whole premise of the movie, the you know, the latest Wonder Woman, it's really more like it's really plays out. The reason I liked it was because it plays out like Twilight Zone, you know, and that's why I liked it. Since we're talking about that, much of the white Twilight Zone episodes are really like a what if, what if, you know, what if conditions were this way, what would happen? So in this case, the villain has complete power to make all his wishes come true. That's always Twilight Zone territory, you know what I mean? And the lesson of infinite wishes, you know what I mean? So what would happen though if you could just get everything you wanted without, you know what I mean, doing anything, which is really a Hotep concept, you know what I mean? Right? Once you realize that you're black though, you basically have all the power of the universe in your hands, and all things would be remedied, you know what I mean, by, you know, by some Hail Hoteps, you know what I mean? Right? So, you know, when as I was watching it though, I took the movie more like that, you know what I mean, as opposed to anything, you know. And then I also knew that the action would be somewhat sacrificed because Wonder Woman herself was also in her own wish of having the love of her life back. So that was sapping her energy, right? And the other goofball from SNL had taken the energy, right? By her own wish of being like Wonder Woman. So I knew that the action would be somewhat compromised, you know, or different type of challenges. So, you know, they went for that. They used that 80s motif, you know what I mean? That 80s satire motif, you know what I mean? Wonder Woman, yeah, demonstrates. You know the way Dark Kim wrote that in there. It sounds like he wrote it like a thesis statement in a sociological paper. In this sociological work, I'm going to prove that Wonder Woman demonstrates how women, and then you know you just give the bracket of, you know, mainly Caucasian women though, from the ages of, and then you give the ages, right? Deflect the truth presented to them in control studies with their marvelous bracelets. You know what I mean? And, you know, then she controls men telling the truth with her marvelous robe. Yo, yeah. You know, as a fun thing, if you guys ever research, they got books on this, and I have books on it too. I have those books about how, you know, the guy that made Wonder Woman and everything. He's a real freak, and most of the Wonder Woman concepts are just that it has the pseudo, you know, the it has the pseudo facade of being overly woman empowering, but when the guy made it, most of those early comic books though, they're all about bondage. You know what I mean? So most of the early the old comic books of Wonder Woman though, she's in bondage somehow. You know what I mean? So like she's roped up more than she ropes up people. You know what I mean? You know, so that's an interesting thing. You know what I mean? But with all things, you know, when you watch a movie and stuff like that, or any type of art though, sometimes um take note of what you're expecting versus what you get. You know what I mean? It's usually why you might like and dislike something. You know, and I'm just saying that you know, out of, you know, out of all things, like let's say if I listened to Dark Kim's albums and I was looking for some De La Soul fun action, you know what I mean? Some jokes and comedy and shit like that. There's not the record for that. You know what I mean? Giggle on my own time. You know what I'm saying? Play the early Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince albums. You know, it's not. But yeah, but there's a couple of books on that. I think they even made a movie about the guy, the guy that invented that. You know what I mean? In fact, here's a fun fact. I think I'm correct on this. The guy that invented Wonder Woman, I think he invented the lie detector test too. Now you see why the rope had such significance to us. You know, this guy was really trying to, you know. Yeah, he invented the William Moulton Marston. He invented an early prototype of the lie detector. You know what I mean? And he was a freak though. You know, with his wife though, he was you know, he had a polyamorous life partner. So you know, his wife, you know, he had two women in his life. You know what I mean? So he was always, you know, and it's not the same. Like he's a god with many earths, though. It's always that's different. You know what I mean? That's different. You know, that's different. You know, not the same though. But yeah, I had seen a documentary on it. You know what I mean? And I thought I would be bored and stuff like that, but that shit was, this guy's life was pretty wild though. You know what I mean? Yeah. The guy was a dirty comic book, and he made a comic book. You know. But yeah, he made the early prototype of the lie detector. You know? So it made sense that he would write in some type of lie detecting thing in there. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah, anything goes in the non-Hotep regions of YouTube. Yeah, apparently so, right? Yeah. We're no holds barred over here. Right? You type ropish. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah, he was European Hotep. Yeah. Yeah, they did make a movie of him, but I didn't watch it though. Um, Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman. You know, so I'm sure that movie was wild though, because they knew if they made a movie it'd be kind of wild. So. Anunnaki, I don't know. I might not be the man to answer that, right? All right, so just take this moment here before people refresh with any questions and stuff. Um, for those that wrote articles and stuff, I'm going to look at them. I know Quatis, you wrote me some. I gotta really review. Um, and I have two others that I know that that are good and y'all want to be in the 5% media site. So I will put that in. If I have any questions and stuff, I'll get back to you. But don't think there's a problem. No, I'm just getting up to it now. And that's the only reason that they haven't been published. This week I was just really trying to finish up a piece that I had written that was really long, and I just needed to finish it though. So I didn't even write a column for last week's class session. So the 5% media, if you have stuff that you want to build that is more centered toward the nation, understanding about things and stuff, if you want to be published there. I also have what I'm doing is a magazine called a small magazine called the Cast Faction, right? And it's basically on podcasting, about how to do podcasts, writing about all of the issues that pertain to podcasting as far as like the subjects that they cover, talking about other podcasts. And so when you really define it that way, we cover the gamut of all these issues though. So it goes from music to whatever podcast we decide to cover. And certainly with an ear directly to the ones that are coming from our section, because the magazine will be published by S Street Media, which is the podcast company that I work with and do my own Power Right show. So if anybody wants to write columns about and really know what it is to like work articles through into a magazine format, what is done, how it's done, and just want to go through that process, see how it's done, definitely get at me. If you don't know how to write it or anything like that, I will help you, especially for the magazine. I have whole formats and blueprints for you to fill out, and it'll get you in the door there. Even if you want to write about an issue that is for the populace, that this general populace that this magazine is for, and you don't really know how it relates to any podcast because you don't really listen to podcasts or anything like that, that's okay too, because every issue is covered in some type of podcast. So we could do if the article's quality enough, and I'd help you get it there. We can relate it and attach it to some type of podcast that is going around and stuff by making note of it somewhere. And that's what I'm here for you as an editor, you know what I mean? To help you get through it. But that kind of experience, that kind of development of your writing and stuff like that. And, another chip in the resume in that form that I'm offering you. So, because the first issue we are expecting to get it out by the beginning of March. Okay, so email me for any of those things, right? Whether it's that, right? Whether it's a 5% media site, or it's the Cast Faction magazine, right? LT said, thanks. Someone asked if am I a hotel before knowing that a hotel, knowing that hotel means peace. I thought she was just asking, like, all about peace sounds like you're saying people call themselves hotels. I think a hotep has become derogatory, but I don't cry about it. You know what I mean? Because I think that people have really abused, a lot of our ancient history, to falsely glorify, like sometimes people use the past as a proof of your destiny. You know what I mean? Right? Even Marty McFly had to secure his own destiny. You know what I mean? But if you have any questions, let me know. Let me know. I built earlier about why for this month at least, though I'm teaching here. Um, the important questions of teaching at the school during the COVID era, right? You know what I mean? Right now, to me, a lot of school in Mecca is secure enough for teaching the students that we do know. It isn't very secure though for teaching those students that we do know when you open a school that allows anyone to voluntarily walk in, because that's the design of our school. So I don't know, and what I've seen, though, I have seen my students be not so, the students that I do know, not be so comfortable with the walk-ins that they don't know. You know what I mean? And of course, ones that I don't know, because that's just the way school works. So it's a different dichotomy. It's different. We're adjusting daily though, but I'm still here. Oh, that's Peace of Bill. Look forward to that. Um, Now that you said that, though, I'm gonna email you something, because these articles, they really get you in the door, because they don't have to be long at all. In fact, they should not be long at all. Like, if you actually want to write something and show it to me instead of asking me like how to go about it, or just throw an idea at me, that's fine. But then know that I really don't need more than 400 to 500 words. So you can keep things from, even a quick, if it's quality, a quick 150 to 200 to 500, because it's a small magazine, so we're going for the frequency as opposed to the size. And the shorter articles allow us to fit more different, the variety of many issues that we have going. You know what I mean? And then, as we get a bigger writing staff and it all increases and the budget increases from the sales and things go well, then we can increase the page counts and stuff, right? So that'll definitely. So you don't have to know any, like, any podcast or anything like that. That's okay. I mean, if you don't, like I said, I will help you with that. You know, all right. All right. just writing better notes, because that way I can address these emails as quickly as possible. Indeed. Um, when I when did I know I had something to say? I mean, it's difficult. You don't know. Well, there's two stages though. You have something you want to say, but you don't know. You don't always know that what you want to say is something that needs to be said. In other words, though, like, are there other people already doing that? You know what I mean? So sometimes, usually with everything though, it ends up being a thing where, like, it doesn't matter if I'm saying similar things to other people. Nobody else from where I'm at though is saying that. So, like, in a hip hop sense, because that's the guys that I come in as. The neighborhood I'm from though doesn't really have anybody speaking for it. You know what I mean? So when I became a writer, once I knew I could write something and it was acceptable ideas that people felt were useful, right? Once those ideas were seen as useful, like, people appreciated them. I didn't back down. They were confrontational, whatever it was, right? The way I started was as a very confrontational writer. If you read my stuff, it still is. You know what I mean? That's the way I write. Yeah. So as I wrote, even if other people did say stuff like that, it didn't mean anything to me, because someone had to say it from where I was from, and there was nobody. There was nobody like that. It's probably possibly still that there's still nobody like that. You know what I mean? Right. So the point is that you say things that are useful, and then as you go along, though, you try to say things that are useful, intriguing, worthwhile, and then you start to realize that, wait a minute, can I say this in a way that is special? Can I make it sound unique? In this case, like, make it sound fly, make it sound ill, dope, you know what I mean? Whatever, right? And then that just becomes the goal. Whenever I write, though, I keep it that simple. I say what I think about, what I mean to say, what needs to be conveyed, and then I just spend it, trying to destroy the structure, to fit, any and all creativity that could come out of me. You know what I mean? Was that just part of the growth of learning to write better, that you wanted to see how it would land on other people when they read it? Or did your audience develop out of finding your topics of interest? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question because I don't know. I started writing and I had a big ego, so I felt like everybody was going to read it though. So it was like, how is this gonna take? You know what I mean? How are people gonna take it? And you do want to see how it would land, like how tough it's gonna be, how rugged it will be, so all those things, you know what I mean? I started writing in college, so when I'm thinking about how those things landed, you know what I'm saying? And of course, though, when you write in a magazine, um, you're waiting for people to see copies of you, waiting to see that they agree with how I see this album, the way I saw it, you know what I mean? And after a while, that wasn't enough for me. I wanted it, I wanted people to see the creativity by which I wrote, and that was what was being, what could not be expressed in the line of work I was doing, hip hop journalism. I wasn't able to write pieces that were creative. I want to write about music, but I wanted to be a creative piece about music, and that didn't exist. You know what I mean? That didn't exist. So the rawness, the creativity that you saw in hip hop writing was in columns, not or maybe slightly in features about an artist as they travel with them and turn it into a piece. And these are all in the old. I'm trying to find a name. Give me a minute, because since we're talking about it, I'll give you some journalism history. I'm forgetting the name, so let me find it. I just read one of his books last year, so let me see what the name is. Actually, I remember the name of the book. So he wrote a book. He wrote a famous piece called "Frank Sinatra Has a Cold," and that was just because he was. And this is when people wrote feature pieces that were basically like 20 pages long in a magazine. And Gay Talese, that's his name, Gay Talese. He's still alive. An Italian writer from New Jersey, but he's really credited. He's he helped define what people call contemporary literary journalism. So basically, writing about what you're watching, but in a creative fashion, and more like a novel, you know. Now, if you've ever read my pieces or features, I'm technically going a little bit further than that. I'm not really writing about the artist um, in a fiction format. I'm writing about the artist though, but I'm also injecting like poetic prose. So I'm turning my thoughts about the artist into actual poetic prose. So there's abstract ideas and creativity that's thrown in that um, is either directly talking about the artist or is inspired by the artist. You know what I mean? So I took it to a little bit a different lane that it literally doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Um, no one does that. You know. So like no one would write a review of an album though and start it out with a poem that has something to do indirectly or directly to the artist and the artist's work. Nobody did that before, So um, the idea was to try to do something that nobody did. And since I was well read, I knew that people didn't do that. You know what I mean? Everybody else that I admired wrote clever prose because they were just clever. So you saw their character, able to put their character in the pieces that they wrote, whether about music, like Amiri Baraka did, um, or in columns that are music related, like Bones Malone. But nobody really put like just straight abstract poetic, poems, into the guise of pieces, along with all of the other, you know, poetic prose or personal prose that come through inside the piece, you know. But those innovations come because I'm trying to make this something beyond just talking about people, because I grew up as hip hop as anybody, and I just wanted to make something that was like a hip hop piece of work, you know. But the growth is really just learning more about yourself, because uh, the writer has to find their voice though, and a lot of times people find their voice though by emulating the emotions of the voices they respect. So for me, it was you know, vicariously, not knowing that I was just emulating the angry voices of the greatest artists I was hearing. You know what I mean? And then that develops into other things. You know what I mean? And then after that, though, it doesn't even matter about what audience you have. You know what I mean? Right? Because I think I probably lose audience more than I gain because of the way I write. I don't know. I actually couldn't tell you. You know, like I couldn't tell you if I wrote these things standard, because I still, in this day and time, I write about music nobody writes about. So, and in the larger amount of writing. So I don't know if I wrote it standard, it would probably help me more. I don't know, but I can't write like that though. It's whack. It's so boring. You know what I mean? So why would I write boring? You know. Let me read some of these comments before I wax poetic about my own poetics, right? And tax the aesthetic of this class, and then they'll need a prosthetic, right? You know, this knowledge the real deal. You gotta go to work and you know what happens too. Oh, that's peace. Well, by the way, if you coffee drinkers, I always say this, looking for a spark drink, yerba mate is always good. I prefer the loose leaf. Even though the Guayaki brand is very good, great brand for the yerba mate, their yerba mate drinks that they make are yerba mate for sure, but they should be like every now and then drinks, because they put mad sugar in those things. You know what I mean? They add mad sugar. But the loose leaf yerba mate. But my favorite is still the guayusa tea. You know? That's my favorite tea. That's my pre-workout tea. That's my get up and go tea. You know what I mean? And all these teas, though, I think they only work good if you have them until a certain hour. So like past 4 o'clock, I don't drink these teas. You know? But side note, Samarg 1001, never read that name here. Peace. It's how you deliver the contents, how it's received. The audience plays a big part too. Just giving my 2 cents because I'm dealing with the same thing. It depends. It depends, Samar. He's asking me about the way I started writing. And when I started writing, I didn't know my audience, though. I didn't know my audience was the people I thought I was talking to, maybe a few people and stuff like that. So, friends, buddies, and I didn't really have an audience. So there was no way to gauge, you know what I mean? And as I developed the style that I have now, I couldn't do that if I was thinking about an audience, though. No way, because it was rejected at most magazines, you know. And if you've ever collected magazines in the 90s and actually found my work, you would see that it doesn't read anything like the way I write now, you know. And it doesn't mean that I only write. I only write it. I wrote like that then, but it was more raw, not as skilled. I hope I've gained, but it certainly wasn't embraced, back then. A lot of things I handed in that were rejected many a time. All right. All right. Dark Kimmy, pain in the ass. Gay Talese was Hotep. Gay Talese was a little racist though in some of his pieces though. But these are times when they, articles used to be huge, though. You know what I mean? But that Frank Sinatra has a cold piece is actually really good, though. You know. Self-I build, yeah. You know, this is the good part. Self-I build. When you have more energy, now you have to learn not to waste it, and you also have to learn how to funnel it. You know, so those are good growing pains. Those are good dilemmas. Now, the key is acknowledging that, because what you don't want to do is start to eat more junk foods or pleasure foods in the justification that, you know, I got a lot of chi, you know, I could chill it down or calm it down. You know, don't. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, don't do that. You know, go through these growing pains of figuring it all out, you know, and how to get the energy like that, you know. It'll do, you know. Double excel, source, vibe, stress, hooked, one love. I'm trying to think of what else. Hip Hop DX, One World magazine. That's recent though. That's not a new magazine. It's not, you know. But yeah, all the everybody, you know, everybody. You know. Double XL, I was there in the late 90s. You know, I'm the one that reviewed Capital Punishment. You know, Jay-Z on the cover in 1999 with the Rockefeller crew. I wrote the Beatnuts piece in there. What other stuff? I wrote a Pete Rock piece that was never published in One Love magazine. It was good too, man. They fronted. Stress magazine, I can't remember what I wrote for them. Reviews, I think. The Source, I edited, Ghost wrote most of the Big Pun piece in 2005. A lot of other articles, small articles in there. As I was editor, I wasn't really a writer. Vibe magazine, I wrote the original review for Inspector Dexter and Controlled Substance. The plagiarized version of my work was used when they got the updated version of the album. Fun facts. You know what I mean? But I wrote everywhere. You know? Lavo Revolt. Lavo Revolt was a magazine that I made in 2007, 2008. Lavo, my favorite, who I think is the GOAT, sonero in salsa. Lavo means the voice, so I wrote the voice of Revolt. Revolt being one of my favorite songs from Eddie Palmieri, Revolt. Right? Gay Talise's works are in books, though, so you can find them. I could give you a book. You know, I could give you some books about his collected writings. You know, you know what's a really good piece? Journalistic piece, though. He writes about his own life. You know, that one's really good. You know, because you really get a sense of that type of writing and the jewels that you could get from that style, though. So there's a lot of things to learn from his writing. Not necessarily from knowledge, but from the actual formats. You learn, you know, you learn a lot of what he was doing and the strategies. Very, very gifted. There's no way around it. You know? You were telling Dark Kim the other night, Samar, I've been trying to give some of my close friends the knowledge I've learned out of respect and feel like they listen, but they let it go out the other ear. Friends don't really listen to shit. What you need to, you know, in the long run, the best strategy is to show them with how your life is changing. You know what I mean? How your life changes, what you do, you know, all that. You know, what you do and how you change, though, is gonna show them the realities of what you're building. You know what I mean? Nothing else. Nothing else. You know what I mean? Everything else is add-on. You know what I mean? No one believes shit about what I say about diet. Nobody gives a damn. It's because I've been living this diet for years, and they've seen the abilities and the success that I've had with it. You know what I mean? Nobody bears witness to this lifestyle of writing and stuff like that until they saw how much I've written and what I took it and what I innovated with it. You know what I mean? But other than that, though, no, you have to, you have to show people. You know what I mean? Street Beat. No, I did not write for Street Beat. I don't even know what that is. No, 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 no. I didn't write for Beat Street. No. Street Beat. No, I didn't write for Street Beat. I did not write for Rap Pages either. I'm just thinking about that because Son did. Rap Pages was West. What was the West Coast? Rap Sheet was a West Coast. They didn't. I didn't write for that either. But they were West Coast anyway. Not to say I didn't like the West Coast music, but it's just the way it was. It was hard. It would be hard to get in there. Knowledge Allah. Pun was good. Oatmeal's good. Pun was great. Right? Pun is to say pun was good is hardly right? If that's good, what's great. Serious said facts. We are what we eat. I rid myself of toxic foods and slow transition to vegan lifestyle. Have to do the science. The devil serve out of. Have to do the science. The devil serve out the wrong type of foods. Always. You have strict dietary laws. Okay. The updated version of Uncontrolled Substance 793rd has extra tracks. There are 2 that they took out, but the real missing part of Uncontrolled Substance is that the original was 12 songs, and it was so much more. I'm not going to say I have an unmastered version, but it was way more gritty. That's the best way of describing it. It was a much more gritty record. It was equalized, much more gritty. It's like the final version has so much more. It's so much more high in the spectrum, equalized higher in the spectrum of treble. They took out a lot of the dirt and the grit out of it. And the Pete Rock track wasn't there. The Pete Rock track wasn't there. I forgot the name of it though. It's still a really good album though. But in 1999, Wu-Tang was disappointing in general because their works weren't matching up to what RZA had produced for them. So their solo forays, like actually solo, like Wu-Tang members doing it, by themselves, they didn't come out as good. Even though there's a lot of quality in them, like compared to records, of the time, they really rack up. But Wu-Tang wasn't fighting the rest of the environment. They were fighting themselves. They were competing against themselves, and because in general, 1999, the quality of music lowered greatly. You know what I mean? So people will criticize Wu-Tang releases, but they were lauding Jay-Z albums, because all of those volume 1, 2s, and 3s are filled with commercial fodder. Filled. To think that people actually argue whether, I'm sure many of you here think that volume 1, 2, or 3 of those in my lifetime is a classic, though. You wouldn't do that with other albums. You wouldn't disregard blatant commercial records filling up an album and give it the same due. You know what I mean? And the reason is because those records blew up, so they have a different life. They have people subconsciously give them a different value. You know what I mean? But I followed the payola, so I know. In fact, when I was at the source, though, that was the biggest piece I wrote. Though the one major piece I wrote was exposing Funk Flex's payola. But Indeed, self I build. Yeah, better than good. Um, I wonder if I don't even know if I have the original. You know, I'm sure the original's out there somewhere. You know? Like I said, I don't think though. I will say this though. I don't think that if you don't, if you have the only the known release of that album, you're not really missing too much though. It's not like a super crate dig, you know. If we were talking about grades, maybe half a grade lower, you know what I mean? I think the real problem is that they added too many songs to it. Not necessarily the equalizing levels and stuff. That would have worked out okay, but it needed to be stay a shorter record. It did. It really did. Because yeah, it was way too long. And I don't think Inspector Deck as an MC, he didn't have enough song concepts to keep that going. And that happens a lot with certain MCs, though. That's why today's one thing about today, the shorter albums, um, they have serve the bonus of maximizing the quality of the artist. You know. Yeah, that's 96 though. That's earlier. No, Magnum Force. That's 90. Yeah, you're right. The second Helter Skelter. Right. Yeah, yeah, Magnum Force. Yeah. I will keep it real. That was that see that album is not really 99. That album is 1998, so it's not really overlooked. It was overshadowed by much greater work. It's a difference of 1 year, but 98 is much different than 1999. 98 was um, the last year of great, massively great recorded, um, commercially released hip hop music. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. All right. So let me hear anybody. I noticed that people say they're on the degrees. How do you see the Nas degree and the one to 14? When this day arrives, though, do you take a note of everything that you've kept your word to? Right? Of course, yeah, of course. Self I built. I'm gonna make. See, the thing is, I don't just want to go through the lessons and give everybody answers and stuff. So, um, I'm gonna do the 1 to 14 though, but I'm gonna write out like specific things that could lead your search. But I still want you to search. You know what I mean? Um, I just didn't get a chance to prepare anything, and to continue that route though. So like when I look at my notes though, like with the 1 to 14, no, I have notes on most of the degrees, but some of them I don't. So um not teaching notes, you know what I mean? So this will only help me because I never wrote like distinct plus lessons for them because um but this way of making out of ideas to see out of them, I want to structure it where I don't forget stuff. You know what I mean? And in my mind, I also want to survey everything. So the next one I'll do, I've done the 1 to 36 before, so I'm gonna skip that, and I will go back to it later for students. You know what I mean? But what I want to do is I want to do the 1 to 14, like different things to study, different things to take note of. Take it through the Justice Build Plus lesson I have, where all of the criteria of stuff and how to do it. You know what I mean? And then hopefully that'll be useful though. You know what I mean? But if I just went if I just go through the lesson, like the whole thing, the 1 to 14 right now, I just kind of be giving you my raw understanding though. I want to format it though, so I'm not giving you just understanding to memorize though, where it actually helps you. You know what I'm saying? And helps propel your search though. You know what I mean? Right? That's why. Okay, I see a word here about. And of course, though, with the 1 to 40, since it's longer, I'll probably do 10 degrees of class when I get up to it and stuff. Right? We could do it that way. Because when I did the 1 to 10, though, I structured it in a way to give you ideas. I gave some of my understanding, but really, I also left it a lot in the form of questions so that way you could develop your own understanding. I don't want to just give out answers that actually can be found and can be explored. So that's why, I didn't really prepare for the 1 to 14, no. You know what I mean? Like a lesson like that, which really went well, obviously, is I really show everybody how to take it through the justice build as well. So what I'll do is it's 14 degrees though. So I'll prepare for the whole thing. But if the class goes too long, I could just do the first 7. You know? But yeah, definitely should that'd be worthwhile. You know what I mean? And as I do these and as you prepare, you should have your own questions. Because I think that one of the things is that some people, and it's fine to ask me about a degree, how I see the degree, but also, some in that question, sometimes it's okay to propose what you think or what you're proposing as an understanding of that degree is, and then, see how it goes from there, you know. Because one of the things about the degrees, like for example, we'll go through some of the concepts that I like to go through in the lessons for general. What are the themes of the set? Okay. Can we break down in general terms the subject matter and regroup them? That was very easy for the 1 to 10. It isn't as easy for the other sets, but they actually can be done though on certain premises. They overlap. So some groupings might overlap with others. You know what I mean? So, like for example, with the 1 to 14, because it doesn't destroy. I'll just repeat. You know, it's no big deal, right? With the 1 to 14, though, there's a lot of decisions of the placement of populations, specifically the Caucasian population. Think about it. A lot of the 1 to 14 is the placement of peoples. That population is controlled, population is placed somewhere, and population is mandated to areas. The Indians, the devil when they're exiled, the ninth degree when they're just when they're decided what they will do with them, right? In other words, how they will deal with them socially, which is also a placement. The social equality, how they try to hide the exposure that would cause their placement, right? The 10th degree, right? Just take them right off the place of the planet Earth, right? And even though it's about the four devils, though, it's still about how to deal with the devil. Like, and in this case, you have to actually ask the question of merit, though, whether it's metaphorically, human, or just inside. You know what I mean? But what we learned from 120 is that the internal devil is what comes out, can be made to be drawn out, right? So in this case, though, it's like populations. What are the choices, though? And then you have other things that add supplemental things, right? How are those decisions kept? By the word is bond. How are those decisions enforced? FOI. How is all that relayed consistently? Captain and lieutenants, though, the order of how you deal with things, right? And how is that fulfilled as a lifestyle? MGT, GCC. So you see how I started to group things. And see, that helps you memorize the lessons now, because now you know that it's an actual lesson. You see what I'm saying? It's an actual lesson. It's not just some random questions that you're learning, though. Lost found Muslim lesson. This is like lost found Muslim. Like, we lost these shits and we put 14 of these joints. And you just put them in this shit together. But who knows? Maybe they just going, who knows? All at 120 could have just been, Elijah learned a lot. Fard was testing him, and on some days he was just going beastly with the questions, and he was answering just with the same vigor, and they became longer sessions, like the jazz record. Some sessions are longer and shorter sessions, and they become the album. But for us as the student, we can group them into different things. You know what I mean? But 1 to 14 really focuses on the decisions of how populations are to be dispersed. And what merits, though, the decisions to restructure a population, to separate peoples, to segregate them. You know what I mean? To cause the actual testing to see where one actually will belong in the society, right? That's the 9th degree again, right? Because we have to, see if he has the merits, though, if he keep the secret, though, if he could try and do like the original man. All of these things, right? So there's a lot of this the 1 to 14 has a lot of macro rules, larger rules, you know what I mean? And then it shows you, you know what I mean? Some of the reactions, why does that keep us apart from social equality, which is worded in such a way that the other degrees aren't, because it talks about what's happening to us. But most of the other degrees in 1 to 14, they're talking about what we do. And that's what makes that degree different. For me, that's why that degree, for some reason, I forget that degree sometimes. You see? Every degree. Why isn't the devil settled on the best part of the planet Earth? Right? That's I ask him, what do we do? Why did Musa have a hard time civilizing the devil? Now, that's what he did, but we're the ones that sent him. So it's still like what we did. Right? Why did we let a half original man, Columbus, discover the poor part of the planet? Why did we run Yakub and his main devils from the root of civilization across, right, the hot Arabian desert? Okay. Why did we take Jerusalem from the devil? Right? Then the odd placement, I would say, then becomes the sixth one, right? Why does the devil teach and keep our people illiterate? That one almost seems out of place with the theme that I have just made. And that's one of the things about 120. So now, where does that fit in the groupings that you're trying to make in your head to remember stuff? You know what I mean? In fact, that degree is a very much a supplement to the fifth degree, because the fifth degree, the main jewel is the use of Jesus to shield lies. You see what I'm saying? So the result of him using Jesus as a shield in Christianity is to what? Keep people illiterate. You know what I mean? And of course, that links up with the eighth degree, keeping us apart from social equality, right? But if you look, the sixth and eighth degree are the two strategies. The two strategies, two of the strategies, not the only, right? Two of the strategies that are that are detailed in the fourth degree, right? Or spoken of in the fourth degree, right? Of how they would do the what? Lying, cheating, right? Stealing from the original man, right? What they were taught by Musa to come back and do. You know what I mean? And of course, though, that takes effect in the why does the devil call our people Africans? Now, that's an interesting degree, right? Because that degree goes in this grouping, but in a different way. See? Because we're talking, most of the degrees are about how we have grouped the white man away from us, right? How ancient original peoples were all grouping. Because when you find it's not just the people in Africa, it's all over the world. Original populations were deciding to keep the European away, right? So this became a mandate. How to deal with them, right? How you deal with them. It's interesting when you study the Mongolians' history and Genghis Khan. He really could have taken a lot of the Europeans' land, and they never really, in the research I've had, they never have great reasons why he didn't, except that he just didn't want that trouble. And yet, the trouble doesn't seem, when you read the context of what he could do and what he was able to do, the trouble isn't really that he couldn't do it. It's because he didn't want the responsibility of the fallout from that. And that's also because they knew that, they had to continue the way they were continuing now. They were to be not to be dealt with until they decided to deal with us, and that's important too. So these are all things that should be popping up in your head. And I'm taking you this kind of like non sequitur, more like a stream of conscious journey to it, because you just asked me a question. But these are how you grouping everything into a lesson is very important. You know what I mean? It really can give you insights on how to make this a whole useful history and not just random questions and answers. You know what I mean? But they all go together. You see how they all go together, You're welcome, Malik. You know what I mean? Serious, you said, I see knowledge degree in the one form, holding myself accountable by navigating through supreme anthem, perform my duty of a civilized person. If not, my word hold no value. This is not to say outright, but on the knowledge day, you should, and especially if you're on that degree, if you know that degree, you're on it. Sometimes every now and then you should make a list of the things that you are holding your word is bond to. You know what I mean? Like what is your word bond to? What word is bond have you declared to yourself about particular things, and how have you kept that? And to have the real honesty within the self to do that. And that's why I have you write a journal. One of the major developments in the journal writing is to develop your word as bond. And you wrote something in a particular journal, you know what I'm saying? And you fulfilled it, you know what I mean? And this is my 60th book, And mind you, I started doing this in 1998. I didn't write in this book. I didn't write in my journals for about in these last years. There's probably about 7 or 8 years I didn't write, so it could have been even more. You know what I mean? But now the frequency is correct. You know, so it's 100 pages a month, right? 25 pages a week, right? And at least about 1,200 pages, right? And in that work, though, you start to see, you start to have conversations with yourself. You start to see if your word is bond. You know what I mean? That's right. That's right. My grandfather was very right, Knowledge. That's peace, Self-Love Bill. I'm glad that was peace. I'm skipping all the bad boy talk. It's just gross. Let's talk about bad boy. Disgusting. But Raja said, be a father, live healthier, no meat, vegan now, no cigarettes. Yeah, that's big time, Raja. That's big time. I don't use a journal app. You know what I mean? As you can see, I write everything, and I use Google Docs to write all of my documents, everything, my books, everything. But this one thing, I just like to write my personal journals on paper. I don't know why. It's just I just like to keep that. You know. Indeed, that's big time, Raja. You know. Okay. Yes, yes. Yeah, no, audio journalizing, all of those things are great though. So that's definitely not a problem though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, people keep an audio journal, like they'll just, talk and stuff. So that's not a problem though. The key is that the writing or anything like that, or documenting it and stuff, um, those will work, you know what I mean? Those will work, And again, I haven't used a digital notebook like that for journal, only because I want to. I actually want to put pen to paper. You know what I'm saying? So this is a form where I still come up with ideas. So I still like to use it. You know what I mean? And the actual physical activity for me of having a pen I like, and writing down ideas and writing completely disgustingly sloppy, is very enjoyable. I couldn't even write the page number right on here. I wrote it so sloppy. I've got the. But a lot of work, a lot of ideas come through here. A lot of ideas come to just using that. Obviously, as far as like writing pieces that go out, I don't know how people do it, but like paper pad doesn't work because, you know, the way I look at words, they always appear like blocks and puzzle blocks, you know. So writing stuff on the pieces, it works like that, you know what I mean? Because that's how I see words, you know, like in my mind, they're like puzzle blocks, you know what I mean? So um, having a Word document where I could move things all the time is you know, it just is too much. You know, the more digital I got, the better I became as a writer because I could move those pieces easier. You know, and they, you know, and, total freedom to challenge the structure. You know, when you do that. So yeah, you know, as long as you know, anywhere you're recording your thoughts, though, where you can make the conversation with self more overt, you know, that's the key. Yeah, you know, I could look for Malik. I could look for some good apps that you can use. You know, there are. I never looked for them because I didn't use them. You know. But what's most important, what's most important is that you have those. What I love about the digital stuff is that you have like, especially when you use Google Docs, you have infinite space to write. You know, you're not gonna run out of space. You could do anything to it. You can mix and match. You can move. Um, you can change the layouts easier. You know what I mean? You can go from so like a person me, the way I write, I go into prose into stanza very effortlessly. So the choices for how something visually looks and changing how something will be read is I need to be able to do that. So right. So you definitely they have all types of apps like that. That's piece serious. I've never read that book. I read very little and study very little about grammar. I just read constantly and just understand the grammar. You know what I mean? So I've always found the best way, is to just read, and read more and read varying ideas. You know what I mean? But even if you learn grammar technically, which is fine, um, the key is to be able to know understand it so well that you can manipulate it. And that's the key, you know. All right, what we got here? That's peace. That's one of the good things to see. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need to be, you have to prove to yourself your own development. You know, and some of it wasn't just because you got old. It was really, you know, actual work. Right? All right, peace, knowledge, Allah. All right. Definitely peace. Okay, last half hour. Any questions that you all have, throw them out. I gave the forms for us to build, ideas about how you can build on the 1 to 14. All right. That's peace stuff I build. That's peace. Oh, that's a random question. I mean, what does that apply to? Like, what do you mean serving justice? You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of times we're really talking about enforcing something, you know, that's not being enforced. You know what I mean? So how do we take it? You know what I mean? Who do we take it to? Right? I mean, is it a generic concept? I mean, it's really about making other people do as they should. So I'm not always for that, you know. See the thing, Rome, right? It's not there. You know, we could talk about devilishment and things like that, but killing the devil within, though. But you gotta understand that, like, developing yourself. You know, it's more like cleaning house. You know what I mean? It gets dirty if you don't clean it. You know what I mean? That's why I always say bathe yourself with belief. You know, it's never really done. You know what I mean? There are etymology dictionaries. The Oxford one is the best. The Oxford Etymology Dictionary. Yeah, that's the best. You know, you'll know what the best one is, though, because when you see definitions more about what words used to mean included, as opposed to just showing you the history of its spelling, which is what you usually get, then you know you got a good dictionary. It's that simple. You got a really good etymology dictionary if it starts to show and give real references to the roots of what it once meant, or where the possible meaning could have, how it merged with and became that word, the meanings. When it's not, a lot of etymology dictionaries don't have meanings, they just have roots of how the word became spelled, and that's really not as useful. You know, that's more like for spelling bees and shit. You know what I mean? But we're not just on our Aquila and the bee shit here. You know what I mean? Mm. Most of them are insufficient. You know what I mean? I have an old Oxford etymology dictionary, and I mean, it, they all could do better, but that one has some real jewels in it. You know what I'm saying? Like some real, exposing definitions. You know what I mean? See if I can, if the ox. Let's see. Yeah, and again, the Oxford, the Oxford Dictionary of Etymology on in Amazon, the current one is, $85. So that I didn't even spend near this much money for the one I have, you know, because I know I never would have spent that much for a book even back then. Yeah. But it's definitely not a book you just buy, you know, like, oh, it's really big, it's good, you know. Yes. My oldest, obviously my little child, she's, you know, she's 7, so I haven't taught her, you know, that yet, you know. I just teach her who she is, you know what I mean, slowly get that across, you know what I mean? Both my children know I don't see them all the time, you know what I mean? So the lessons I teach them are more what will stick to them as opposed to just learning rote material. And that's a problem. I don't want them to learn things rote. I want to learn math and alphabet if they can use them. You know, my oldest daughter, I taught supreme math. I taught her aspects of 120, many of the important parts though. But I would like her to want to learn it. You know what I'm saying? And her to deal with it as she sees fit. You know what I mean? Um, with my children, my point is to give them the decision with the knowledge that I've given them, though, and not necessarily though make them learn the tools that I got this knowledge of self with. You know, want everything to be a choice though. So, um, my my goal was to show them that I'm the true and living God, and that there is no mystery God. You know what I mean? And in those lessons, I think I've done well. You know, and just like any young person, I want them to know. I want them to want to have 120, not just to be memorizing it. And again, that's an adjustment, and you know, it's an adjustment, Supreme Scientist, because I don't, you know, I've never been, you know, for the formative years where they could start to learn this. I've never been, and I won't be the the custodial parent. I'll be the non-custodial parent. You know what I mean? So what happens is I have to adjust and deal with the quality of the most important part of it. You know what I mean? You know, so that's the strategy I've always had. I mean, it's much different though if I had my children with me every day, because if they're with me every day, then the the works, they wouldn't know me just by the way I treat them and care for them, and knowing about all the works that I create, but they would also know about the massive amount of work that it takes to make those things. You know, like for example, like my young child, you know, and both of them, as they grew up, they see it. But when they're young, because of this life that I have without them mostly, um, they don't, and that's deliberate. They're not really seeing how much work it takes to make the things that I make. You know what I mean? So if I have, let's say, like my youngest for a weekend, they might not even see me. They won't see me train. They won't see me training. They won't see me training anymore regularly like they did when I lived with them daily. Because I want to spend the time with them. You know what I mean? Um, they're not going to see me writing mass amounts of things, unless they're doing something, then I'll go do something. You know what I mean? But certain things I always see. I've never, all my free time, I told you I read a lot, so they'll see those things. You know what I mean? But because in their very formative years, I was with them every day. They know, they end up knowing that this process of massive work is happening. You know what I mean? Living with uh, living with me is about seeing me do a lot of work. You know what I mean? and it looks like work to people, but it has become my lifestyle. You know what I mean? So everything's just the way that I do it, though. You know what I mean? It's work to write the things, but that's what I would do anyway. That's what I do. I have to do that. You know what I mean? It's work to do the martial arts, but I'm a martial artist, though. So they learn those things. They learn those things that go along. So I'm more I'm more concerned with showing them though that the life they live is very viable for them. In other words, that they can achieve the great things, but they can also create the great things. They don't have to do things in the way I've done them. You know what I mean? Right. And Hikarim, yeah. My etymology dictionary is quite old though, and I've had to put some tape on it and everything like that. All that, Yeah, but etymology dictionaries, they're really quite expensive, and the online ones are not always sufficient. They'll help you, but not really. Of course, Wikipedia, because a lot of things they offer etymology, but not so much. You know what I mean? You're welcome. But yeah, that's how it is. You know what I mean? Because I look at I look at the way that I live, and I don't think I would want my children growing up, just obsessively working. I would want them to also be reflecting and retrospective. You know what I mean? To see, is all this work really viable? Where does the enjoyment of stuff lay in and things like that? It's hard because a lot of the stuff that I always enjoyed become massive work. You know what I mean? So it's very rare that, I mean, really, any type of music I listen to is some kind of work for me. You know what I mean? Because I write about all music, and if it's mainly about hip hop, all music informs it. So, you know, and again, I end up, so all the things that I enjoy, they end up being something worthwhile, and that's I think did that on purpose in my life. Make the things that I enjoy be valid and useful. You know what I mean? It just happened to be like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just do this is the way I am. I don't know if I'm comfortable doing things that are blatantly like just useless. You know? I don't know. I can't think of much that, you know. Yeah. When you think of things like that, all the arts, all everything, you're from the most goofiest arts or whatever, um, can all open up your palate though, if used appropriately, you know. Yeah, Of course, in that context, though, there's no place for any Pitbull records, though. But I'm willing to live a life without those records forever and never hear them ever, and things like that, But who needs that shit, you know? But if you have children, it's about the qualitative measure of your time. You know what I mean? So, um, if you live with them daily, then you have a different strategy. If you don't, you have to change the strategy. You know what I mean? Right? You can't see them for a weekend and just be trying to have them memorize everything. You know, they'll live a real life and they just won't have a context to remember to memorize those things. You know what I mean? How it goes. You know, but if they constantly realize the things that you create, the things that you do, and then they see what are the keys behind how he did it, though. I think these things stay longer with the children. you know. And eventually, if they're as smart as you had, you know, as you would hope they would be, then they'll know that everything that they'll create, though, is really going to be with the same principles of supreme math that they, you know. And throughout my oldest child's life, they would always come. She would always come back with those questions, right? Because the lifestyle that she was forced to live or was under, that was contrary to mine, those holes exposed themselves. You know what I mean? Right. So they, the children learn by seeing, by contrast. You know what I mean? So it's like they learn like the Tao. You know what I mean? They don't know, you know, what is right until they see wrong. You know what I mean? So if that's the way that they have to learn, though, then they have to learn. You know what I mean? They have to learn that way. They might not learn about sometimes you have the joy of teaching them the fullness of the room from the jump, but other times, though, they have to learn by seeing the emptiness of the room to know how it is filled. And that's how it goes. Yeah, but yeah, never stressing it. Never stressing it obsessively, because when they're young, you just want them to remember that they learned a lot. And my young children, they always knew that I worked a lot. I did a lot of work, that my daily life, things that I chose beyond just a job, I do a lot of work for. So when they see you not work and play with them, that shows a lot of sacrifice for them. You know what I mean? For you, it's a joy. Like, like I work hard during the week. You know what I mean? Like I told you, like these 25 pages and things like that of the week. I have my daughter this weekend, so I have 2 pages left to write. They're gonna get written tonight, because the less of the required works in my own personal schedule, the more that I can spend the time with them. You know what I mean? And for example, my daughter has a 3-day weekend, so I have her extra Monday. Monday starts my training sessions and all of my required works and all that, but I push it all till I start that Tuesday instead. You know what I mean? The normal podcast show that I would have Mondays, I have a week off. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? They don't know all the sacrifice, but eventually they see it, though. You know what I mean? And it'll add up good. It'll add up good. They'll know. They know the truth. Because you'll have works and creations that reveal that truth, and it'll be worthwhile. You know what I mean? But the thing is, though, is that when they're not around, though, you got to work your ass off. You can't just be crying that they're not around. You know what I mean? You got to work your ass off. Right? And yes, Kareem, wiki etymology is usually off point. It's very rudimentary, not very insightful at all. Like with etymology, you could really feel that they're hiding a truth. You know what I mean? Because etymology shows you the history, of how words develop, though. It also means how ideas are misplaced, how ideas are covered, hidden. And again, if you want to build on the build degree in the 1 to 14, that's etymology. You know what I mean? Because the changing of the language. Ivan Van Sertima said that one of the major ways that you can trace the validity of something is through the language. You know what I mean? It's through the language. And I always took that to note, because he talked about, and I'm reading these books early. I'm getting knowledge of self from Puerto Rican, and Puerto Ricans are usually called jibaros, which is like, Hicks, people that live in the mountains, that are farmers, and that's our roots. And most of them are really light skinned. So they're seen as like just European roots of us that live up there. But the word jibaro It's actually an African word. You know what I mean? And it's something that Sertima, shared, but also shared his ideas about etymology and the strength of the meaning of a word. You know what I mean? And that's why etymology is definitely not a science, so that they purport much, because it's a social science indeed, but it's one that reveals a lot about how people change and how people cover stuff. You know what I mean? Right? I mean, look at the whole LGBTQ million letter, trans community and all that, right? I mean, that's an exercise in etymology, isn't it? You know what I mean? I mean, just itself. I'm not, all of my thoughts about it and everything like that, notwithstanding, that's an exercise in etymology and just people blatantly changing definitions of things, um, advocating as if these, and the thing is, though, is that they're not just advocating a change, like, let's do this now. They're also advocating that these are the way the words always were meant to be. You see, and that's one of the things that good etymology would expose, though. It'd be like, nah, that word didn't always mean that. You know what I mean? And so, or this word is being changed for that particular manipulation. You know what I mean? Right? And the Kami, that jewel about Hibaro was in the They Came Before Columbus by Sertima. I forget which page. I gotta go through it, but it's from there. Indeed. Yeah, indeed. It's a lot of mountains in PR, right? But the Hibaro referred to the farmers, you know what I mean? All that, you know what I mean? The Hicks, right? So until, legends like Lavo made it popular to call yourself a Hibaro in song and embrace that, it was very Shantapan. In fact, the Hibaro music, right, which leads to things like the chants, like Lelolai chants and stuff, those chants are actually Moorish chants. You know what I mean? They're rooted in Moorish chants. And that's not my research. That's I forget the music journalist that found that. You know what I mean? So you know, lots of African roots in a lot of the things that Puerto Ricans do. But we are at the 10 o'clock. If anyone has any questions, you can email me. If you have my number, text me. You know what I mean? And all those good things, about the magazines, the 5% media, the Cast Faction, anything that you would like to work on, be part of, anything you're trying to learn, any difficulties you're having, let me know, all right? So until next week, though, everyone stay healthy, build strong, and create, all right? Peace.